Right, so here you can see I've finished doing my layouts for my floor plan right here. So this is the floor plan that I made. And just to recap, I converted the measurements. I anchored down this point. Okay, so I started out at this location right here. And we talked about this last time. It makes sense to start on an area of your blueprint, whereas the straight walls, I wouldn't advise starting in an area like this. Okay, so when you do this, this blueprint should be held in relation to your actual piece of plywood that you're working on. So you can see here, this bump out here where this bay window is, it's in relation to my plywood right here. Okay. This recess where the front door is in relation here, and it's the same all the way around. Okay, so you don't want to be working on this. You don't want to be working on this like this because it's not in the right orientation. There's different ways you could do this. You could maybe write, if you had your blueprint, you could write north and south, and then on your plywood you could write a north, and you could do a south on your plywood. And that way you can always keep these in relation with each other. But here you can see what we did. Last time I showed you this wall here. So I started out with the wall thickness, measured over to all my different location points on that section right there, okay? And then off camera there, I carried on doing the whole process. I actually did this wall over here next, went all the way down here, and then I went over to this side, came all the way over to here. And I'm not gonna lie guys, this guy here, this eraser, came in handy quite a lot. I used the 320 grit sandpaper. I made a bunch of errors and a bunch of changes along the way. Things don't always line up perfectly, guys, and this is where you're going to have to make it suit and make it get square. Just a couple little guide points here. So as I came up on this section here, I ended up getting my ruler, and I used my ruler to measure the distance from here to the edge of the plywood. And I knew this was parallel all the way along on my blueprint, so whatever this measurement was here between this line and the plywood, I just made it the same all the way over here. And that way it's nice and even. I think the blueprint called for this wall to be slightly lower, but I wanted to change that and make it all the way across. For example, if I put this straight edge on and line it up with one side over here, it will line up with the other side over there in a nice straight line. Okay, and that's where you can get a little creative with this, and it's completely fine to go a little different than what your measurements might call for. Okay, so don't be afraid of changing these measurements. Like I said from the start, this was a guide point. It was just to get you started, to kind of get you going with this. Okay, so it's not set in stone. Obviously on a real job site this would be set in stone, but for this we're going to get it as close as we can. Okay, and that's what we should be looking at right here. I used a nice sharp pencil, got a nice sharp pencil to do this. I used a ruler, and the plywood that I gave to you when you got your base plywood, you got 5 of these foundation strips. These work really well as straight edges. Okay, so it's the same length as the base here, so you can use these for really good straight edges to connect your lines together. So I ended up using one of those. I used sandpaper, and I used an eraser to erase any mistakes that I made along the way. And the whole time I did this, my blueprint stayed in the center of my piece of plywood. Okay, that way as I moved my plywood around, this always stayed in the correct orientation. Just made it easier for me. You guys do whatever's best for you, but that's what worked for me. Okay, and this took quite a while, guys. I've done this many times. This is my 7th year doing this, so I've done this quite a lot. But I will tell you to spend time doing this. Get it really nice. Get it looking good. Just to finish up here, you can see the gap here is 1/2 inch against the edge, just the way my one fell out, and it's nice and parallel all the way along. Same with this back one, same with this side one here. You can just visually see that it's nice and straight. And then when I got over here, there is a little bit more. If I can slide this down for you, there is a little bit more area here where my blueprint didn't call for that, and that's completely fine. Don't worry if there isn't that half an inch. Like, you might have it come over quite a lot depending on whatever your blueprint calls for. These open spaces, I could build a deck here, I could build a little set of stairs leading up to my front door. The options are limitless. So basically all down to your imagination with this, okay? But that's where we're going for this right here. So if you have any questions on that, let me know, but this is what our end result should look like, okay? There is one more section that I'm going to do in the next video segment, and it's foundation pillar blocks. Okay, so I'll talk about that in a minute, but that's what we should be looking at right here, and that's the goal, to get it nice and square, nice and even, okay? If you have any questions, let me know. Take care, guys.